Cinematographer, otherwise known as Director of Photography. The cinematographer's job involves several film aspects, all of which revolves around the visual style imagined by the director. We focus on the tone, the composition, the framing, the lighting, the mood, focus, and everything that relates to the message we want to convey and see through every shot, also known as the mise-en-scene. The role of the DOP is often muffled and blurred to combine with other roles, such as the camera operator and camera assistant. For short films specifically, the DOP combines almost all of these roles into one big job. To begin with, a director of photography must know this one basic aspect of production, regardless if they are controlling the camera or not. Lighting. As the director of photography, a basic aspect of my role is to focus on the lighting of the shot to fit with the visual style of the director. Yet, the lighting may be altered slightly in post-production, but that is where collaboration between director, editor, and myself happen. As here elaborates, cinematography is fascination with light. Lighting is a cinematographer's tool and has the ability to set the entire tone and mood of a scene. In typical cases, there is the contrast between warm and cold tones, but in some cases, there's the use of specific tints and hues to display particular meaning or setting. Blends of brown, also known as sepia, portrays an old-timey fashioned image. A mix of black, white, and grey combined for a black and white colorless image, or even a noir stylistic approach, all of which revolves around the stylistic choice and theme of the director and the film. One of the most common forms of lighting used in film is the three-point lighting system. It is a setup of three lights surrounding a subject: the key light, the fill light, and the hair light, which can also be a backlight. As Steve DeCasa puts it, depending on the mood of the story, depending on what you want to do, you can choose to have all three, or you can choose to have one. These variations of the number of lights set up will dictate the mood and tone. The mood and the tone of the film expresses exactly what it is, the mood and the tone. It conveys the aesthetics of the film, the aesthetics of which is, as Marc LeBlanc explains it, the emotional impact of the film and the way the film connects with the audience. A cool blue tone triggers several interpretations of the scene: calm, mysterious, or cold. A warm one is the opposite: joy, adventure, or fun. Joseph Miskelly states that there are essentially 5 C's of cinematography. These range from camera angles, continuity, cutting, close-ups, and composition. Firstly, it is important to note that the director of photography is not limited to a physical camera. A virtual camera, virtual world, and virtual lighting are fair game for DOPs too. As you can see in this 3D animation I've made, the director of photography's role is still effective in creating an animated film. Everything talked about so far are all contributed towards the mise-en-scene of each shot. When speaking about camera angles, Miskelly addresses that camera placement is determined by narrative significance. That is, the camera shows what it shows, and is placed where it is supposed to be to allow for the narrative to progress, not simply because the shot looks good. Continuity. There are some rules in practicality when it comes to filming a scene, one of which relates to the continuity in the form of screen directions and the 180-degree rule. The general consensus of the 180-degree rule is to set up an imaginary wall that the camera does not see past. On one side of the wall is a line of action, while the other is the forbidden zone. The camera should not cross this line during cuts unless it is shown crossing it within the scene. The 180-degree rule allows for the audience to understand the positions of the characters in a scene. If the displayed positions of the characters were swapped, say if we shot both characters individually, both looking to the right, it would confuse the audience as to who is speaking to who. But if you have them face different directions, the camera and the audience can tell. The composition of a scene detracts from all the visual elements to create the desired shot. Composition as well has a few set of rules. However, rules for compositions are more like guidelines, as the end results are dependent on the stylistic choice of the director, as you will be shown later on. The number one rule for a composition, particularly in regards to the framing of your piece, is the rule of thirds. It's a common rule not only used for film, but also for photographs and artworks. The aim of the rule of thirds is to position and frame a subject on the intersecting lines when dividing up the frame of a camera into 9 segments. As you can see by this freeze frame, the subject's eyes are along the intersecting lines to allow more emphasis on them, rather than what it would look like if the shot was framed against the rule. However, This sort of framing can be justified to make the subject seem less important in relationship with the environment or with anything else in the frame. This clip of USA Network's Mr. Robot that Seme Oku modified to address the composition of the series shows the way each shot is framed to make the characters seem of little significance compared to the rest of the world, which is what Mr. Robot entails, that people are just sheep of the larger world. This sort of composition works especially well for horror and thriller genres and subgenres. In conclusion, a director of photography's job is one that is complex yet simple enough to understand through practice. As the director of photography, I will take it upon myself to advance in my role to create the best rendition of all the combined aspects of a cinematographer's job to my film.